Welcome to the Blending In podcast, where we chat with innovative educators who are integrating EdTech. I'm your host, Ashley Azarlu, and I'm so glad you're listening in today. As teachers, we don't often get the chance to see into the classrooms of our colleagues, but by listening today, you'll get an auditory peek into the CTE digital media classroom of Omar Ali from Tahquitz High School. So welcome, Omar.
Hi, Ashley.
Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation today. I've been really excited to talk to you. We've been kind of like planning this for months, and we kept getting like pushed off, and it's finally here. So I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to be on the show.
Can you just give our listeners a little brief overview of like who you are, how you came in to be in this position as the digital media teacher through the CTE program at Tahquitz, and a little bit about your educational background? Like, how did you get here?
Yeah, sure. Since high school, I wanted to do all things kind of digital media. I took film classes in high school. Shortly after kind of finishing high school, a friend and I started a small production company where we'd shoot live bands and stuff like that, and then we'd edit it and publish it for them. It was in the early days of YouTube. So a lot of them needed exposure and needed footage of themselves. So it worked out pretty good. Completed my undergraduate, and I had initially wanted to go for a film degree. I went to Grand Canyon University, and at the time it's still a relatively small school, but it was even smaller then. So during my core classes, my communications 101 teacher was also in the film program. He was a film teacher. And he had told me to not get a degree in film and instead just take all the electives, take all the film classes electives. So I did that and got a minor in film. And then after I graduated, moved back to California, and I started an internship at a local radio station. And they had seen that I had film experience. So after like a 2-month internship, they hired me on and brought me on as a promotions assistant. And I did editing for them, Photoshop and some of the video stuff. And I learned a lot more about audio there. And I did that for a few years. And I worked as a newspaper photographer because in the film classes I had to also learn photography as well. So kind of led up to this point until somebody said, "Hey, I think you'd be a good teacher," and they have classes called CTE where you would basically teach what you do at work. And I was like, "Oh, I'll try it out," and I've been doing that since 2018 now.
Oh, very cool. So you have this extensive background in like film and radio, and you're using basically like what you went into like career wise to come in and like teach our kids these things. So that's really cool. Like CTE is one of those unique subjects where most of the teachers in CTE have no background in education and like classroom practices and pedagogy and things like that. And they're coming from industry. So and they're just sharing their expertise with our kids. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. Like the kids need like someone who like knows what they're doing and is inspirational, to inspire them to go into these kinds of careers. So in thinking about that, like your typical day when you come in now, you've had a few years in the classroom now. So what is a typical day in your digital media class look like for your students?
Typical days depend on the day, but we try our best to mimic real world scenarios. Kids have an idea of what a job in a digital media atmosphere would look like. So we have a 2-year pathway. That first year is very much kind of learning the basics, learning the tools, learning how cameras operate, learning how to manipulate those cameras to get things like shallow depth of field and stuff. So it's a lot of small projects, or I should say big projects, with small assignments to kind of help get them to that point.
Very cool.
And then in their second year, that's where typically they have a greater understanding of their tools and their software and their hardware. So we dive deeper into the actual job of creation. So they're creating things like Titan TV. They create things for our Instagram. Usually around campus, they're asked to do things like shoot pep rallies. Sometimes they work in conjunction with Yearbook to help them get photos for football games and baseball games and stuff like that too.
So they're like capturing all the like live action stuff that's going on the campus
Yeah,
and then being able to like produce that for the audience, for the student audience and parent
yeah.
audience too.
Parent community. It is published publicly, so it is on things like YouTube and Instagram, so
YouTube.
anyone can find it. Obviously, our biggest audience is our student population, but
Mm-hmm.
we've had some videos that perform much better than that because they're just well produced.
Very cool. So I'm curious then, the inspiration for these instructional activities that you're doing with their kids, is it like driven by a specific curriculum or where does that come from?
It is part of our CTE anchor standards for
Mhm.
arts, media, and entertainment. Um, we do have standards just like English and math and stuff like that that predicate like what we have to teach students and what projects look like that they have to work on. So most of the inspiration comes from that. Trying to get students experience with things like script writing. That's a
Mm,
requirement. So we analyze scripts and then we write scripts, and then for every project they produce after that fact, they have to have scripts. But that's because it's an anchor standard that students know how to write in the correct format.
yeah. As a former ELA teacher, that's like speaking my language. So your students are like having to work with a lot of like platforms and equipment. Do you run into like technical challenges? I'm sure you do. And when you have these types of challenges when they're doing these productions, how do you overcome that with the kids?
In all honesty, obviously tech is always going to have updates and uh, issues where it crashes or whatever. And our tech support at him at Unified is outstanding.
Yeah,
Outstanding. Lance Kim in particular, I can just send him a message and he'll go in and fix it within a few minutes. Even major problems, I've had like Matthew Fories and stuff come down, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, we can get that fixed," and they get it fixed almost
yeah.
immediately. So
We
it's
definitely are privileged here with our
yeah.
IT guys. They are phenomenal.
Mm.
So you mentioned like technology updates and things like that. So with technology, we know it's ever evolving. So how do you stay up to date on like the best tools, the best platform, the best hardware, et cetera, to
hmm
utilize within your digital media class?
Um, I mean, obviously, it's what is the best is subjective.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense of some people might think one camera manufacturer is better than another, or a certain brand of computers are better than others. Um, it takes a lot of research. I still do work within the industry, so seeing some things, you can see them kind of coming down the pipeline, like, oh, this is where we're going. So it's having my foot still within the industry helps me understand like this is what's changing within the industry, which helps form our curriculum.
Yeah.
We also have industry partnerships for students so they can firsthand see. So we've written some MOUs to work with some partners like the Lake Elsinore Storm
Oh,
during
very
their
cool.
live podcast. The House of Portraits, I believe they're in San Jacinto, and they shoot like school pictures or like a production or a portrait studio. So our students will get to work with them. And that's
Nice.
where we get informed about that, as well as we have, I'm sorry, let me think about what they're called. Um, Advisory meetings and an advisory board.
Hmm.
So it's not just predicated off my own personal beliefs. We have other industry professionals come in and take a look at our curriculum and help advise us with, hey, this is the software you should be using, or this is the hardware that you should be kind of moving toward.
Yeah. And that makes me think like are the kids giving you opinions on like different organizations they want to partner with or different platforms they want to use? Like are they getting to share their voice and how are you able to like bring that in or do you have to be like no, I can't do that because of, whatever regulations like I don't know about all the kinds of regulations that may be on you with this kind of thing, but I know that there's so many things out there that the kids are interested in using. Like, where do you find that balance?
Yeah, we definitely listen to the kids with what they want to do within reason. So we try to listen to them in a sense of if they want to work on a particular project, we try to modify it as best possible to make it something like school appropriate so that
Mm-hmm.
they can produce it. I try not to say no. Instead, I try to be like, hey, let's change it to this so that it can be something that the school can
Yeah.
produce. Um, as far as like working with specific industry partners, they're welcome to. We always ask parents because you never know whose parents work where and where an in can be.
Well,
And
that's a
that
great way to get community involvement right there.
Yeah, and we've had some parents and brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles come in and talk to class because we've had some other photographers and other graphic designers um, coming in that were found through the students. They'll be like, "Oh, my mom's a graphic designer," so
Nice.
you're
I love
definitely
that.
listening to them what they want to do as well.
Nice. Well, okay, so in thinking of like the larger scope of your digital media class and like the CTE program there at Tahquitz, what's an activity or a project that you facilitated with students that you're most proud of?
Currently, right now, the two things I'm most proud of are our Digital Media Academy. It's inaugural year. Digital Media Academy, or an academy in general, is a cohort of students. They go from Miss McDormand's class. She's our English teacher, and then they go
Mhm.
to Miss Chafee, our history teacher, and then they come to digital media. The goal is to have cross collaboration between those three courses. So an example would be if they're reading the lottery in Miss McDormand's English class, well, they might need to transcribe that into script format and then shoot it in my class.
Oh, I
So
love that.
yeah, it's exciting, and the kids are excited to be in there, and it's kind of getting that buy-in.
Yeah,
Is
they
kind
can
of
definitely see the connection between
Yeah,
how all these classes come together to help produce that final product.
yeah. So I'm excited about that. I'm really proud of that. I'm also excited and proud of our career technical student organization. It's a requirement to have, and in the past, I've always had trouble getting involvement. But this is the first year we have really heavy student involvement. We'll be going to a leadership conference on October 7th, so that those students can continue to get more leadership training and bring that back to their peers here at Tahquitz High School.
I love that you're cultivating leadership skills with your kids. That's amazing. Okay, so speaking of the kids, how would what like words would your students use to describe you as their teacher?
Um, I think they would probably say silly.
Why would they say that?
You know, usually I don't know. I'm silly. They think I'm silly. To me, it's the only way that I kind of act, and I think they would say silly though.
Oh, I gotta appreciate the heartedness of it. Like during a school day, sometimes it can be, a little mundane, a little boring, a little dry for kids. So just bringing that humor into the space can really help them to, just be motivated to continue to work. So thanks for that. Um, Advice. Let's think about, you do a lot with technology, both hardware and software.
Mhm.
And we've got teachers in our system who may be a little bit like tech hesitant or tech resistant. What advice would you have for them?
The biggest piece of advice I would give is the first thing is that I think it makes your life easier. It can make your life easier, even though it can be complicated to get that initial first step in the door. I think it can make your life easier. And the other thing I explain to my students all the time, I know that some students take this class because it's fun and they may not want a career in digital media, but technology is infiltrated almost every industry. So
Absolutely.
uh, by taking the class, like a lot of byproducts are, hey, we deal with cloud-based like storage, and I'm like, hey, even if you're a nurse, like there's probably a possibility you're going to have to interface with something like cloud-based storage, and if you understand it from taking a digital media class, like that's better than not having known how to do that.
Yeah.
So as teachers, I would say you're preparing our students for careers as well, and most of these careers are going to deal with tech,
In
and so
some way, right? Yeah.
we were think of it as, even if you don't want to do it, you have to prepare these students for life outside of class where they're going to have to deal with tech.
Yeah. And that actually just made me think of something else, like the evolution of artificial intelligence right now. Have you seen an impact of AI in the digital media realm?
Oh, absolutely. Adobe, which is the primary software that we use here, they've continuously been updating all of their applications to use AI. So we've, in this class, in our level 2s, we've played with the Photoshop beta of AI, and you can just type in prompts, and then the AI processes those prompts. So things that would take multiple steps, like removing shadows or something that you wanted out, you can just make a quick selection and then type like remove shadow, and then the AI just removes it for you.
Wow.
So it
Wow.
still takes, the digital media artist to control it, and it's not 100%, but it is something of seeing, hey, it is kind of starting to take effect. And then obviously with the creation of, hey, what should we create? AI is kind of predicating that, and algorithms are predicating and understanding what people are watching, and then that in turn influence like what we create. So
Wow, that is phenomenal. I'm really excited to see kind of where it takes us as a whole in education and the things that we're able to create as teachers and also our students, like what they're able to do with it. So thanks for sharing. I really appreciate you coming on the show today. Any final words of wisdom for our listeners before we sign off today?
No, if you can, take a digital media class, or if you have a digital media teacher on campus, give them a thumbs up.
All right. Thanks, Omar.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Blending In podcast. I hope you gleaned some inspiration to blend in EdTech into your instruction. You can find show notes and resources from today's episode on my website, blendinginpodcast.com. If you loved what you heard today, leave a review, follow the podcast on socials, and hit the subscribe button to get notified when new episodes are released. Until next time, don't hesitate to innovate and integrate.